I continue my read from Of Water and the Spirit. I just felt like this section would be an eye opener to where we are today. We're actually coming 360, and we think that what we're experiencing now is something new. The world of the Dagra. Now, the Dagra is the culture that our elder and ancestor, Malidoma Patrice is from the Dagra culture. So he says, the world of the Dagra also does not distinguish between reality and imagination. To us, there is a close connection between thought and reality. To imagine something, to closely focus one's thoughts upon it, has the potential to bring that something into being. Thus, people who take a tragic view of life and are always expecting the worst usually manifest that reality. Those who expect that things will work together for the good usually experience just that. In the realm of the sacred, this concept is taken even further. For what is magic but the ability to focus thought and energy to get results on the human plane? The dagger view of reality is large. If one can imagine something, then it has at least the potential to exist. I decided to do a little experiment of my own with reality versus imagination when I was home visiting my village in 1986. I brought with me a little electronic generator, a television monitor, a VCR, and a Star Trek tape titled The Voyage Home. I wanted to know if the Dagger elders could tell the difference between fiction and reality. The events unfolding in a science fiction film, considered futuristic or fantastic in the West, were perceived by my elders as the current affairs in the day to day lives of some other group of people living in the world. The elders did not understand what a starship is. They did not understand what the fussy uniforms of its crew members had to do with making magic. They recognized in Spock a contemple of the seventh planet, the very one that I describe later in this story. They're like spiritual beings. And their only objection to him was he was too tall. They have never seen a contemple that big. They had no problems understanding light speed and teleportation, except that they could have done it more discreetly. I could not make them understand that all of this was not real. Even though stories abound in my culture, we have no word for fiction. The only way I could get across to them the Western concept of fiction was to associate fiction with telling lies. My elders were comfortable with Star Trek, the West's version of its own future, because they believe in things like magical things, Spock, traveling at the speed of light, and teleportation, the wonders that Westerners imagine being part of their future are very much a part of my elders' presence. The irony is that the West sees the indigenous world as primitive or archaic. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the West could learn to be as archaic as my elders? As in the case of Star Trek, Westerners look to the future as a place of hope, a better world where every person has dignity and value, where wealth is not unequally distributed, where the wonders of technology make miracles possible. If people in the West could embrace some of the more positive values of the indigenous world, perhaps that might even provide them with a shortcut to their own future. Many people in the West seem to be trying to find this shortcut through their commitment to learning about indigenous cultures, non Western forms of spirituality, or most recently, through the men's movement. If these seekers fail, and if the modern world lets the indigenous world die, it will probably mean a long, hard trip into the future in search of the values of the past. Westerners forget that it is not only indigenous cultures that have a deep commitment to non Western ideas about reality. Even in a highly industrialized culture like Japan, a connection with the ancestors is taken very seriously. When the new emperor of Japan was installed, many leaders in the West were disturbed by the fact that, as part of his inauguration, he went into the temple and spoke to his ancestors. Why is it that the modern world can't deal with its ancestors and endure its past? It is my belief that the present state of restlessness that traps the modern individual has its roots in a dysfunctional relationship with the ancestors. In many non Western cultures, the ancestors have an intimate and absolute vital connection with the world of the living. They are always available to guide, to teach, and to nurture. They represent one of the pathways between the knowledge of this world and the next. Most importantly, and paradoxically, they embody the guidelines for successful living, all that is most valuable about life. Unless the relationship between the living and the dead is in balance, chaos results. When a person from my culture looks at the descendants of the Westerners who invaded their culture, they see a people who are ashamed of their ancestors because they were killers and marauders masquerading as artisans of progress. Marauders are raiders, in case you didn't know. The fact that these people have a sick culture comes as no surprise to them. The Dagger believe that if such an imbalance exists, it is the duty of the living to heal their ancestors. If these ancestors are not healed, their sick energy will haunt the souls and psyches of those who are responsible for helping them. Not all people in the West have such an unhealthy relationship with their ancestors, but for those who do, the Dagara can offer a model for healing the ancestors, and for doing so, healing oneself. Wow, you see why I love our elder and his wisdom? The things that are considered new to Westerners are actually not new. To the indigenous, there's no such thing as fiction. It's either it's truth or it's a lie. They don't do make believe. They don't do make believe. So you understand that we have work to do. We're not here to do us, as many believe. We are here to heal ourselves and therefore heal our people. Like our elder says, and our ancestor now, not all people in the West have such an unhealthy relationship with their ancestors. Not all of us are messed up like that. Some of us have not cut that line of communication off. When our elder says, if such an imbalance exists, the relationship between the ancestors and the living, it is the duty of the living to heal their ancestors. And he says, if these ancestors are not healed, look at this, because this is what's happening in our people. Their sick energy will haunt the souls and psyches of those who are responsible for helping them. Do you not see this happening in our people? You're seeing things now that you've never seen before because the healing is not taking place. Heal your ancestors. And by doing so, you will be healing yourself. Thank you for listening.